You are a coca farmer in the Huallaga Valley in Peru. You have 3 acres of red dirt and a back that has been bent since you were 9 years old. You grow coca leaves. You have been growing them your whole life. Your father grew them. His father grew them before that. You know every inch of this soil. You know which rains are good and which ones rot the root. You are an expert. You are also, by any economic measure, the single most exploited person in the entire supply chain that will eventually put cocaine on a table in London. Here's what you make. 1 kilogram of dried coca leaves sells for approximately $4. 1 kilogram. To produce 1 kilogram of pure cocaine, you need between 300 and 500 kilograms of those leaves. Do the math. The entire raw agricultural input for a kilogram of finished cocaine. The sweat, the soil, the years of expertise. Costs the farmer somewhere between $1,200 and $2,000. That kilogram of cocaine will eventually sell on the streets of New York for between $25,000 and $40,000. You see the gap? That gap is what this story is about. You sell your leaves to a middleman. He drives a truck. He is not your friend. He sets the price and you take it, because the alternative is selling nothing at all. He buys from 20 farmers like you. He loads the truck and he drives to a maceration pit somewhere in the jungle. And that is where your leaves disappear forever into the machine. The maceration pit is the first processing stage. This is where chemistry begins. The leaves are mixed with gasoline, sulfuric acid, acetone, and a rotating cast of solvents depending on what the cook has access to this week. The people working these pits are young men mostly. They work without gloves. They breathe the fumes. The cartel pays them $40 to $80 a week. They handle chemicals that dissolve skin. They are not chemists. They are labor. They are cheaper than the solvents they work with. The coca paste that comes out of this process, a grayish, waxy brick that smells like chemicals and rot, represents the first real markup. A kilogram of paste is worth roughly $1,500 at the pit. Not to the workers, to the organization that owns the pit. Now the paste moves. This is where the logistics problem begins in earnest. The paste travels from the jungle pit to a secondary processing lab. This could be 100 miles or 500 miles, depending on where the military is operating this month. Transportation costs are not trivial. You need trusted drivers. You need bribes at every checkpoint. The cartel has relationships with local police, with regional military commanders, with mayors of small towns whose children need school supplies. Every one of those relationships costs money. Some of those bribes are paid in cash. Some are paid in product. Some are paid in the understanding that the alternative is much worse. The logistics budget for moving paste from pit to lab runs between $200 and $500 per kilogram. That comes off the top. At the lab, the paste becomes cocaine hydrochloride. This is where the real chemist enters the picture. Real chemists are rare. A good one can earn $3,000 a month from the organization, which is a fortune in the regions where these labs operate. But a good chemist is also a liability. He knows too much. He has seen too many faces. The organization knows this. The chemist knows the organization knows this. This tension is never spoken aloud. It is simply present, always, like the smell of acetone. The finished cocaine exits the lab at roughly a $4,000 value per kilogram. The organization that runs the lab, let's call them the cartel. The specific name does not matter. They are interchangeable. Now controls a product worth $4,000 that began as raw material worth less than $2,000. They have added processing, transportation, bribery, labor, and chemical costs totaling somewhere around $1,500 to $2,500 per kilogram. Their margin at this stage is thin, surprisingly thin. They are, at this point, essentially a manufacturing operation with catastrophically bad working conditions and no OSHA inspector. Now the cocaine needs to move out of the country. This is where the cost structure explodes. The cartel does not move cocaine themselves, not directly, not the bosses. The bosses are 3 layers removed from the physical product by this point. They use a transportation organization. Call them the transportistas. These are semi-independent operators who specialize in crossing borders. They take the cocaine from the cartel and they move it across a border. Any border. and they deliver it to the other side. For this service, they charge between $2,000 and $4,000 per kilogram, depending on the route and the current heat level from law enforcement. But here's the thing about transportistas. They are independent. They have leverage. If they get arrested with your product. So their fee is not really a fee. It is a hostage negotiation conducted in advance, with cocaine as the hostage. You pay what they ask or you find another route. And finding another route means building a new relationship from zero. And every new relationship is a potential rat. The transportista uses subcontractors. He uses a driver. He uses a lookout. He uses a document forger who creates manifests for the fishing boat or the refrigerated truck or the hollowed-out shipment of fresh pineapples. Each subcontractor gets a cut. The subcontractor below him gets a smaller cut. None of them know the full picture. This is by design. You only know what you need to know to do your job. This protects the organization, and it also protects absolutely nothing. Because when the DEA arrests the driver only knows the name of the person who recruited him, and that person only knows the name of the person above them, and so on, like a chain of dominoes with the cartel boss standing safely at the other end watching them fall. The cocaine crosses the border. Most of it. Somewhere between 5 and 15% of every shipment is seized, stolen, or simply disappears. The cartel has a word for this. MRMA? Shrinkage. Every major business has shrinkage. Retail stores budget for shoplifting. The cartel budgets for MRMA. The difference is that Walmart cannot make the problem go away by dissolving a person in acid. The cartel theoretically can. But even that has costs, and it does not get the cocaine back. By the time the cocaine reaches the destination country, Mexico, the United States, Western Europe, a kilogram that cost under $2,000 to produce is worth somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 at the wholesale level. The cartel made money. The transportista made money. The farmer made $4 per kilogram of leaves. The men at the maceration pit bought groceries for one more week. This is the first half of the supply chain. The second half is where it truly falls apart. You are now the importer. You are based in a city. You have a legitimate business. A restaurant, an import company, a car dealership. The business is real. The revenue is fake. Or rather, the revenue is real, but some of it is cocaine revenue that has been laundered through the restaurant's cash register, turned into declared income, taxed, and deposited into a bank account that looks completely clean by the time any investigator gets to it. You paid $15,000 to $20,000 per kilogram for the cocaine that arrived in your city. It arrived inside a machine part, or a shipment of cooking oil, or sewn into the lining of 100 suitcases carried by 100 mules, who each received $3,000 and a plane ticket and a phone number to call if they got stopped at customs. Some of them got stopped. You budgeted for that too. Every seized mule is a line item. Every arrested courier is a cost of doing business. You did not know their real names. They did not know yours. This is not cruelty. This is operational security. The cruelty is simply a byproduct. Now you have to distribute. You sell to a wholesale distributor. He is local. He knows the city. He has relationships with the street-level organizations. The gangs, the crews, the neighborhood networks that actually sell product to human beings. You sell to him at $20,000 to $25,000 per kilogram. He pays you on a schedule or in installments, or sometimes he doesn't pay at all. And then you have a problem that cannot be solved in court. There is no contract, there is no invoice. There is no legal recourse when a wholesale distributor decides to short you $300,000 on a delivery. Your recourse is violence, and violence has costs of its own. Attention from law enforcement, retaliatory violence, the risk of starting a war that is bad for everyone's business. Sometimes you eat the loss, sometimes you don't. The decision is above your pay grade. The wholesale distributor cuts the cocaine. This is not optional. This is where the franchise model completely breaks down. The distributor takes your pure kilogram and adds cutting agents. Levamisole, phenacetin, lidocaine, creatine, anything white and powder-like that will not immediately kill the customer. He turns 1 kilogram into 1.3 kilograms. He has just given himself a 30% margin by committing fraud against every person in the chain below him. And there is nothing you can do about it because you cannot call a lawyer. He sells to street dealers at a markup. The street dealer receives cocaine that is, by this point, perhaps 60 to 70% pure if he is lucky. He cuts it again. He sells grams. He sells half grams. He sells on credit. He fronts product to his regulars and collects later. Some of his customers never pay. Some of his customers get arrested and take their debt with them into a prison cell. Some of his customers die. That last category is the worst for business because a dead customer tells you nothing about who shorted who on the cutting. The street dealer is making real money on a per-gram basis. He sells a gram for $60 to $100 in London or New York. His product cost him perhaps $20 per gram at the wholesale level. His margins look impressive until you count his costs. He has to pay for the corner. He pays the crew above him their cut. He pays for his own phone. Several of them, switched out constantly. He pays for the privilege of operating in his neighborhood. If he is working under an organization, he kicks up. If he is independent, he pays in a different currency. He is exposed on every side, unprotected, the first person arrested in any sweep because he is the most visible link in the entire chain. And the product keeps degrading. By the time a gram of cocaine reaches a buyer in London, it may be 40% actual cocaine. The buyer paid $100 for 40% of what they thought they were buying. The street dealer profited. The distributor profited. The importer profited. The transportista profited. The cartel at the top profited enormously. The coca farmer in Peru is still earning $4 per kilogram of leaves. Here is the number that explains everything. A kilogram of cocaine costs approximately $2,000 to produce at the source. By the time it reaches the street in a major western city, that same kilogram, now diluted, split, resold, and resold again, generates somewhere between $40,000 and $100,000 in retail revenue. That is a markup of between 2,000 and 5,000%. It sounds like a brilliant business, and in aggregate, at the top of the organization, it is. The problem is that this markup does not flow back down the chain. It pools at each level. Every middleman takes their bite and passes a diminished share downward. By the time the reward reaches the people doing the actual dangerous work, the mules, the street dealers, the maceration pit workers, the money has been carved into slivers. The other problem is theft. At every single transfer point in this supply chain, product goes missing. The driver skims. The warehouse man helps himself. The street dealer underreports what he sold. The distributor lies about the purity. Everyone steals from everyone. In a legal business, you handle this with auditors, cameras, and HR departments. In this business, you handle it with violence and the threat of violence. And yet the theft continues, because the threat of violence is constant, and people stop fearing constant things. This is the catastrophic structural flaw. There is no legal recourse. When your partner steals from you, your only options are escalation or absorption. Escalation invites law enforcement. Absorption invites more theft. There is no equilibrium. There is no stable solution. Every cartel in history eventually collapses, not because law enforcement dismantles it, though they try, but because the internal theft and betrayal and power struggles corrode the organization from the inside out. The logistics problem is not really a logistics problem. It is a trust problem. And trust, in a business where every partner is a potential witness and every witness is a potential informant, is the one thing you cannot manufacture, bribe, cut with levamisole, or ship across a border in a hollowed-out machine part. The farmer picks more leaves. The pit workers breathe more fumes. The mules board more planes. And somewhere in London, a buyer snorts 40% cocaine and thinks they got a good deal. Everybody in this chain is wrong about something. The farmer thinks his labor has value. The buyer thinks they got what they paid for. The cartel boss thinks he is in control. None of them are right.